Thank you so much. Maybe we'll kick off as well. So I usually we spend 10 minutes talking about what's happening in Web3 and all the things that are building the space. But I think this is such a big topic. We should probably just jump straight in so we've got enough time to kind of cover it. So I think from my perspective, and maybe we'll just go around the room and we'll get everyone to start talking as well, just kind of from their perspective about digital identity and also digital branding. So for me, I'm really curious around the idea of digital self, and especially with people bridging. So a recent trend is a lot of people are bridging that digital identity into social media. So previously, Clammy and I have talked about people creating digital models for social media, but this is very different because users are then taking that identity and owning it as themselves, a representation of self. So I think that's when it slowly changes the narrative of what is digital self and digital identity, and how are we using this. So for me, I want to come from an LGBTIQ plus space as a representative, and I think it's so interesting because people can then start to express themselves freely in their sexuality, or if they want to experiment with gender and have that gender fluid kind of identity, they can. But I think it starts to push a little bit around human form. And is this actually, can we create the perfect human form without actually representing ourselves, actually away from that? So that's where I want to come into it. And I think we can also have a discussion around that if we really want. Clammy, what do you think about digital identity? And where do you want to come into this conversation? What's some pain points for you? That's kind of curious.
Yeah, one of the big ones for me is, how do we see ourselves? So, what age do you see yourself as the digital representation? I feel like that's going to play a huge part. Are you your current age? Are you trying to be younger? Do you want to be a little bit older? There's been times in my life that I've wanted to be older, and there's times in my life that I wish I was younger. So, I mean, I feel like at different points in your life that can really um, kind of determine how you feel, maybe. I know I've also tried to create my Still More Monsters brand with, giving people digital identity. So we airdrop wearables, emotes, things like that, so that way they can, dress how they want to at the end of the day. But we hope that we're creating fashion forward things that they want to wear.
I love that. That's so interesting around age as well, because age is so fluid, and especially if you have a digital avatar, it doesn't age. And you can pick and choose, I guess, how old you do want to represent yourself as. Mo, I'll jump over to you. What do you think of when you think of it, like this kind of topic? Did you have anything in mind as well, like from a kind of angle or perspective from a metaverse space or from a digital identity space? And no
Yes,
pressure.
thank you.
Yeah.
I agree with one of the points that you all made earlier, which is it's already happening. Our digital identity is already here, our digital presence is already here. And I think it goes super deep. One of the pain points for me is actually the social credit score. And so, like, the fact that everything that you do is being tracked and, connected, and it's data and it matters. And so, just being aware and how you present that and how you want to be seen and connecting and who you're connecting with are some of those things. I think even when it comes to, like, taking it more as a business front, and that's why I urge people to create that presence for your business also. And so our niche is going physical to digital, so we try to help businesses and creators make a digital twin so they have that representation in the metaverse, but it can look like anything because we show everyone how you can use your gift. So we have farmers and people from all over that. We have like a garden and people that had like a how to raise chickens in the metaverse. So we have little 3D chickens in there, but you're talking and being able to show in a different way. And those kind of people have always said, well, what if I could have been that chicken as my avatar? Or my husband wants to be like a whale. Like, he's always wanted to be like an animal or something else as an avatar instead of just like a person like we are in regular form. So it's just interesting to see like how people will express themselves through fashion or through their avatar and what they want to be perceived as.
That is amazing. And I've seen that as well. Like, this was a discussion point, I guess, when the space was so new, people actually bridging away from the human form and moving on to actually more objects or vehicles or a different kind of shape and I think representation in a really obscure way or abstract way. And I think that's actually the benefit of Web3 and the metaverse is we can be a car or we can be a cup of coffee or we can be an orange, which I think I saw recently. I think it's like an orange, amazing. So I think that's a really, really good angle to come from as well, is like how we can actually kind of objectify ourselves and be like, well, I'm no longer human. I'm now something else. I can actually take the form of something else, and it's not really. I know it's not impossible. Dr. Guo, I'd really love to talk to you. And actually, can I confirm that I'm saying your name correctly? By the way, I really want to make sure I'm saying your name correctly.
Oh, it's right. It's Guo.
Guo.
That's the
Okay, cool.
yeah, that's the pronunciation. So,
I love that. What do you
but
think of digital representation and social media when it bridges? 'Cause you've got so much experience in this space.
right, we have a lot of practice in this space, and if you think about the internet today, the largest traffic goes to these short form video and streaming platforms like TikTok, like YouTube, and we have so many virtual, so-called virtual human in these spaces, and we have a product called iMetastar, and by iMetastar, you can driving an avatar that you like, can be male, female, and anything that you want, and can be even not human. And there's a big influencer in the form of Honey Badger, and he has more than 8 million followers. So it's definitely not a concept. It's happening, and these accounts they make something like 100,000 US dollars per month just by being someone else, and they are super welcome. And we have some influencers beloved by their followers, and they tipping them, they love them, they exchange information, and and it's definitely a non a not negligible uh, new form of how we express express ourselves on the internet. So so yeah, wow, it's definitely a a new form of uh, expressing us, and I call it a to give the beautiful souls another opportunity on the internet. And if you talk about metaverse, to have digital identity in metaverse, I tried it myself because I have my own avatar which look like me, but not exactly the same. When I use this avatar to sit with another avatar from 1,000 kilometers away, being driving, both avatar being driving by two living person, and I really feel so immersive that the person is sitting next to me, and I can feel that. So it's I would love to say that it's not the future. It's really something that next to us. It's really something that happening and more be famous, be popular on the internet.
I actually love that you talked about influences as well and how people are actually representing themselves really uniquely, not necessarily human or not necessarily similar to their own look, but they're making so much money and actually that's their source of income as well as actually representation in a unique way. And I think that's also so interesting to see how that will evolve moving forward because then I guess people could then go on forward to sell influencer or sell their account or sell their representation. But I think as well, recently you might have heard for Decentraland, the metaverse, they've nominated their very first supermodel. So this is actually first for the metaverse Decentraland space, where they've actually said this is an official supermodel in this space. So I think this is really interesting for me as well because an individual can have their avatar and dress it up in a certain style, but that can then become an influencer then to evolve into a supermodel that can represent the brand. So I'd love to talk about this further as we continue in the kind of space today. Thank you so much for sharing. That's actually really insightful. I'm super excited to talk about that. Becoming an influencer through your digital form is really fascinating for me because I feel like unintentionally, I think I'm a little bit I think I'm a little bit in that category. Bay, what do you think of when you thought of this topic of digital self and social media and bridging over? Did you have something in mind when I actually presented with this topic?
Oh my goodness, there's so much. I think I think there's a thesis to be already written on what we've experienced so far, both in Decentraland and Spatial and Mona, in terms of digital identity. I think the kind of two big areas for me right now are this third person perspective that we have on ourselves when we create an avatar, which we don't have in real life. So I think when I was growing up, I was like, oh, I want some glasses that I can see what I look like, at each point, when I'm walking around in the real world. And in the physical world, we don't have that, but in the digital world, we really do have that now in terms of looking at yourself as someone else is seeing yourself on screen. Now, obviously, that's just a representation right now, but that juxtaposition between what we've created in terms of a self and how that's moving within its environment and interacting with others is a completely new perspective for us. And the creativity that I'm seeing right now in Decentraland, both from wearables and also emotes, because we're now creating these emotes that actually interact with others. So I think is it Tang's heart that you can create two people together, and I can see Sadijan on the call right now with his. I'm going to get it wrong, Sadijan. I'm not going to use the right word. The rock paper scissors emotes that then interact with other avatars and create almost performance pieces in themselves. Like that's really interesting from an artist's perspective. Also, you've got this mirror that we're creating that you create something, you put it in a digital environment, and that thing is actually mirroring about cultural archetypes and cultural social norms that you've taken from the real world and put into a very international global environment when you put them in the metaverse. So I'm seeing this kind of emerging trend of wearables taken out of one particular cultural context and put into a global context, juxtaposed within a gaming environment, and suddenly you've got these really incredible multi-layered reactions to them. I think everyone's seen the reaction. I think it was Coinbase who was saying about baby dolls being scantily clad, and that's the real world putting real world norms on wearables that are being exhibited through real world press. All kinds of layer of meta on there. I experienced it myself when I created for this recent installation a wearable in a headdress. And I created it with the extraordinary KJ Walker. And we've been talking for a long time about whether we could create a wearable in a headdress because of the current situation in Iran, whether we wanted to reference that in the work, whether we wanted to put it into a metaverse environment. And we decided, yeah, we did. But when we did the test, I think, again, I'm referencing Sadijan. Sadijan and I kind of went into the installation in the headdress, but also a black dress. And that juxtaposition of what effectively was hijab in a metaverse environment was just extraordinary. Like, I put it on Twitter, and within 2 minutes, I had 3 of my collectors contact me and say, you can't do this. This is just too strong an image to create with a juxtaposition in gaming. So yeah, I could talk about this for a long time, but just for me, those 2 points, that physical world response to cultural norms that we're now putting into the metaverse, and also that third party viewpoint on ourselves that we now have. I might have broken the space. I'm sorry, Michi, are you there?
I think Michi may have gotten rugged, but no, honestly, that is um, such a great insight. I mean, digital representation, I think, yeah, Michi's let me know his connection got rugged. But digital representation is very, um, important in the space. And whether you're bridging these cultural norms or you're doing something different, I think it really has a huge impact, especially with the people around you. Um, let's see. Let's get into I guess the next topic. Oh, can you guys hear me? Sorry, I think I'm having a little bit of rugging. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you. And I would love to take a crack at that as well, as we kind of
yeah.
wait for Michi and you guys to kind of get on to that next topic. But when you talk about the supermodel and the and like the metaverse, I think, especially because I kind of am in that same lane also as Dr. Ju Ching. And I apologize if I said your name incorrectly as well. But when it comes down to like streaming and the metaverse, one of the things like right now, if you were to go onto like one of my main pages, the Raw DAO. So as I told you guys initially, we're in the metaverse, like playing this Twitter space, but then we also stream it across YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. Yes. So that again, we're bringing that awareness to like Web 2 and everyone else. And like, as I said, that's funny that my Discord is sending YouTube alerts that we're live in the metaverse showing this. And so, again, by having this, it just brings awareness. And so, when you talk about the supermodel, or even how we were talking about our avatars and what they can represent, you think about sponsorships and how like in Web 2 and in like the way that we conduct business, that's already the way that that happens. If you have a podcast and you get sponsorships, people want their representation in there as well. And so I think when we think about our digital representation and our avatars and how we can leverage that identity is a really cool take. I think a really great person in the space that does that is Nina Sense, because she always talks about digital immortality, and she actually creates your actual avatar that looks like yourself and then can get booked as an avatar. And now you can be a real supermodel and have your avatar being booked. So now, think about models who are pregnant but now still being able to work, or your avatar being able to live forever, because I also said that comes with digital immortality. And again, how you can start to leverage this identity that, like MichiTodd said, we're all creating, without even thinking about it. As soon as you join and you have an avatar with a name and you're building connections, you are building a reputation, and it is going to matter. And so I think again, it just when you think about how it matters again in sponsorships and in business and in like the grand scheme of things, is also a really cool take to see like the first supermodel and how that can help other models, because there's even Photoshop, how we can do the digital dressing and how that can bring real models into it by just having, a few stills that now any brand can buy your still and digitally dress it with their physical fashion. And there's just like so many lanes that you can go down with that. Just like Bay said, I can talk about it for so long because it's such a great example also to help people understand how this transition is happening and how it's going to happen anyways.
I want to take a quick left turn here, just to kind of touch on one of the points that you made, kind of like the immortality. Do we feel, or how do you guys, feel about this, that you can pass on that digital representation to somebody else and then have them kind of, pass the torch? Or do you feel like that wouldn't really be the same digital representation anymore because that same person isn't behind it?
While I would say that if you change another, we say the driving person who drive the avatar and pass
Is
this
everyone?
on
Can
to
everyone hear me? Am
Yeah,
I
we can hear you.
rugging?
yeah,
Just confirm if I'm rugging or not.
right.
But I think
And
Clem is laughing, so maybe he can hear me. So if everyone else can hear me, yes, okay, cool. I'm getting lots of thumbs up. That's actually amazing, Mo. You've just blown my mind. I didn't even think about life and death with digital representation and bringing even pregnancy into it, and even like I guess certain parts of life that you just would not expect. I definitely think that's definitely groundbreaking, and I think we can actually even start really reflecting on that. Like, is digital representation the perfect human form, and how can we represent the human form as well? So definitely something to consider, and that comes from my perspective. So I see in society and in natural kind of things like Snapchat filters and stuff like that, we see a lot of people, a lot of younger people as well, getting a lot of plastic surgery quite early and actually pushing a lot of plastic surgery. So fillers is really normal now, and nose jobs and stuff like this. And I think I wonder if that will also kind of either qualm that a little bit or actually push that, so people won't feel as much pressure, or will we be starting to create new pressures that don't exist? So that's from my perspective. But I would love to actually continue on to objectification and how we can change that. So um Mo, do you want to talk a little bit about that? And I think that was a really great topic to bring up as well, is like how we do want to be objects and why that might be. And then I can go through kind of the panel, and so I'll go to the doctor and also Bay to see what they think about objectification and being an object in the space. What do you think about this? If you were to be an object, why do you think people are doing that? Or what is this a really common thing in spatial as well?
Yes, you know what? Actually, I had a really great conversation with a former NFL player for a podcast I do called Evolutionaries. And it was talking about like how he's evolving from like being an NFL player and coming into places like spatial and NFTs. And his biggest thing was continuing his legacy. So it is important for him to be able to continue to build something that he can pass on. And so it's really interesting because he was saying like, when he looks at projects and NFTs, he's looking for IP rights and for things that he can build brands around. So, say for example, he bought an NFT that looked like popcorn, right? But it was like a very cute caricature. And he's like, well, because now I can take this and use it as a logo, and I want to see it in all the movie theaters on popcorn, and that's how something can then be passed on. And so I think, again, when you think about the purpose that you're buying these digital assets for, that's where it starts to say, okay, well, now what character do I want to use? What am I trying to personify myself as? And because like I said, I also have a lot of different podcasts. So like I said, my husband wants to be like a champagne bottle in one of them as, again, that avatar because of the sponsorship. Now anybody that sells alcohol can kind of envision their logo on it and where they can fit into this as well and come into this space. So, we always try to do proof of concepts and just, again, show examples for how others can fit what they're doing into the space. And, let people kind of take their identity and evolve from there because there's so many great ideas. And to see what people can like take that and run with, I think is where we're just going to keep seeing, new limits every time in every different space.
I also just want to shout out. I'm so sorry, doctor, if I cut you off earlier. I think I cut out and I didn't hear anyone, so I'm super sorry for cutting you off. Mo, I think that's actually really great topics around, that representation of people wanting to push themselves in the space and being able to do that through that change of shape and change of form. I really love that. Um, Doctor Guo, do you have anything to say about this topic about objectification? Because you even said the character was a honey buffalo, you said, or an animal or something like this earlier.
Yeah, it's a honey badger. It's a very aggressive animal in Africa. So the person impersonate honey badger that's quite aggressive and at the same time lovely, and same time the badger has a family with a dog, a tiger, and a sheep and a crocodile, and they are a family. They have stories, and they keep posting a very say amazing story every 2 weeks or every month, and accumulating that in the last 3 years, and so now they have 8 million followers, and it's a phenomenon. If and I mean, it's quite interesting, like Mo talked about, and I didn't imagine somebody want to be a champagne bottle, and I would love to ask my influencers to have a try what it feel like to do streaming in the champagne bottle way. But I think it's a very interesting topic that normally these influencers also get the advertisement request from brands, and I can easily sell a Louis Vuitton virtual object or Balenciaga virtual object to uh, to the followers of the influencers, but I I didn't really try to ask them to be some object and put the brand directly on the object. Quite curious about that.
Yeah, no, of course. And digital representation can definitely come into all different shapes and sizes and different forms, which really makes it interesting. Bay, what do you think about this?
Hey, yeah, so just first off, I mentioned a heart emote. It's actually by Canessa. So if anyone's interested in finding it, it's by Canessa rather than Tang. In terms of objectification, I think for a lot of us that word kind of has negative connotations, especially if we've grown up as a segment of the population that is generally objectified, especially when we're young. So it's really interesting for us to sort of explore that term now as creatives working in a metaverse. Like, can we push at the ideas of objectification? I know, like, we can take it in really simple terms. Like, I was running around Spatial yesterday as a Christmas tree. Kind of, you had this great advent calendar right now where you've got those VRMs with Christmas tree orange. I saw it on Rizzle's feed. Like, so there's that kind of fun side of objectification, and then there's the more sort of multi-layered, interesting side of objectification, and whether we can start pushing at that using digital media. So we're really early doors, but I think we can almost start looking at that kind of representation. Like Doki 3D is doing some really interesting work around that in her wearables, looking at representation of female form, almost like referencing things like Bratz dolls and Barbie dolls. And as women, putting that on and entering a metaverse environment is like exploring all these cultural norms and references that we grew up with, and intentionally objectifying ourselves in the metaverse, and intentionally playing with that idea. And I find that really exciting. So yeah, from the whole scale, from being able to just literally objectify ourselves, put on a brand, start exploring our relationship with that brand through embodying a brand within the metaverse, all the way up to playing with what we've been told or influenced by in terms of objectification from third parties, and then playing with that ourselves in a digital realm. All of it is super, super exciting.
No, 100%. And another one that I wanted to also talk about is how influencers can use digital representation, kind of like on TikTok and other platforms. How do you feel about this, Doc?
Well, definitely there are many of them who are using the digital the virtual themselves, virtual being as their representative to get tipping, to even sell something on TikTok, on YouTube. And well, I was so exciting to see that the largest influencer can have something like 100,000 people watching them uh, in while they are streaming. So it's definitely a quite phenomenon, very interesting way to explore the internet, to communicate with the followers. And I even have the idea to make a metaverse version, OnlyFans, to build the space for them and to build the space for the VTubers, for the influencers to even pronounce their characteristic, to have more way to interacting with their followers, not only by live streaming but also by gaming. At the same time, also let the followers to have their own uh, digital identity to communicate, to play with the influencers, and there's so many possibilities to explore.
Hey, Doc, I just have a question as well. Like around that, so do you find in Asia there's more of an acceptance for digital representation? Or do you think it can actually then start bleeding out into Western media? Do you think this is just kind of like it hasn't hit yet? It could be kind of like an early trend.
Wow, I think the reason that you have this impression is all about that this short form video is actually start from Asia. And so no matter TikTok or this kind of short form video platforms and streaming platforms is actually developing a little bit faster in Asia compared to the West. And I can add some facts here. The latest request that we got is a American R&B singer, and she has already reached a certain limit of her followers. And the next step, she wants to even more get even more popular on the TikTok and YouTube, is to use a avatar of herself. And so it's definitely gonna have the same influence the same impact in the Western as well.
I think that's actually a really good point around, musicians and TikTok and things like this because we saw, and this is something Clemmy and I were talking about earlier in the week, is the weekend having a digital concert and then starting that chain of digital concerts in these spaces. So, you had Ariana Grande in Fortnite, Weekend in TikTok, and then you also had like Post Malone doing the Pokemon concert, and I think there's been a string of other digital concerts, and then it's also continuing. So Decentraland having really big name concerts, big name musicians coming in, starting kind of like before last year, and then we have Spatial and all the other metaverses now showing this. So it's not a surprise that we'll start to see more, I guess, musicians moving into the space with digital representation and being able to hold more digital concerts because it makes it more accessible as well for a larger audience. And I wonder what that even means because, I think even in real world, we're starting to see a lot more kind of like digital representation on stage. So people, I know it's quite old based Japan because Japan's been doing it for so long, but a lot of new places, like you see like ABBA or Elvis or some of these kind of artists that can't perform anymore and they're having a digital representation on stage. So it's kind of interesting how it's going to see this identity bleed between two worlds where people are going to have a hologram or we're going to have digital representation in a metaverse or they're going to have it streaming. It just opens up such a big door. Bay or Mo, did you want to actually add anything to this as well? Because I'm not sure if you'd have any ideas around it or anything around kind of like digital influences, especially now we're starting to see supermodels and, this kind of new wave of, I guess, titles.
Yeah, I think the main point that I would add is what you all just said, which is the globalization factor. How now a performer, that I'm here in Las Vegas, Nevada, so I might have a little bit more access to people that are, passing through internationally. But just as a digital fashion designer, I've had a physical piece where I've made a tie dye and then sent it to Scotland, and then the designer has finished it, or where I've taken a picture and digitized my pattern and sent it to a designer in Nigeria. And so again, I think when we think about the global factor and how designers and artists are able to now collaborate worldwide with artists that they would have never had to be in front of audiences they never would have had the chance to, that's also how you get this like super model effect, right? Because it goes further than just like saying, oh, you're just an influencer or a model, but to say that you're a supermodel, it's because that's going to be across all of the metaverses, right? Because like even right now, I pinned at the top how I'm streaming this in spatial, right? So you see my avatar there. I'm wearing the Maybelline makeup, the L'Oreal hair, fabricant on the body, and I take that kind of stuff serious because I told you guys I'm all about that branding. And I've got the actually the picture for this chat in there as well. And so again, I think when you see more people start to actually like streaming this, because again, it's on Twitch, and imagine if there was 100,000 people actually watching this on Twitch, then that means any person that hops in there is now also getting this like acknowledgement to those that are watching it. And so I think again, as the awareness grows across the globe, you'll just start to see those kind of things like influencers start to grow across different spaces like spatial or Decentraland, or how you have these cross experiences. Like if you guys came to that panel, like I said, that Todd Michi was in, this month we're actually having just a party, right? The Dolphin Arc DAO and the Raw DAO is planning just a fun holiday party. We're thinking like holiday karaoke, but we want to do it in collaboration with Decentraland as well, where we're kind of like portal hopping between the two and bringing these communities together because we've all been, working here and working there, and we can double our efforts when we do that together. And again, bring that awareness to show people how easy even that is, or what it looks like in there and what it looks like in here and what you're able to do and how you can use the tools. So yeah, that's my perspective on just taking it global across all the verses.
And Mo, bestie, buddy, I thought we knew each other better. Why are you wearing pants in spatial? This is the culture that was being created. And I can see Maybelline, I can see pants. If we're not scantily clad, are we really living, Mo? Is this
I
what we're
totally
doing now?
forgot. You know what? I don't know if Ready Player Me has a no pants option, but I should have definitely checked it because I'm all about like dressing the part and I'm gonna have to double check that and be more prepared next time.
No Pants Friday needs to be across the board. I hope everyone listening takes your pants off for the weekend because we need to be relaxing. We need to be getting ready. We need to be unwinding. Re- Taking the pants off this topic. Thanks, Mo. I think that's actually really good talking about interoperability as well and how that can create a supermodel. If you can create fashion that transcends and influence that does transcend different metaverses, then you can really grasp that influencer like this kind of web 2 style influencer. You can then grab that and grasp it for a metaverse kind of audience. Bay, did you want to add anything to this kind of topic? What do you think about this?
Yeah, in terms of the influencers, I've actually been to 2 conferences in the last couple of months with digital influencers in a real world space. So at NFT Show Europe, there was Meta Mori speaking, who's a bored ape. He inhabits his bored ape like persona, is anonymous behind that. And then at Global Robot Expo, like in Madrid last week, there was another influencer, female influencer, who entirely inhabits her avatar. I will look up the name and reference it in Twitter. But yeah, it was interesting. I don't think it quite works yet in a physical space. I can completely see how these influencers are using it in terms of streaming, in terms of Twitch, and kind of things where you're almost doing a broadcast and don't have to respond too closely in terms of the environment. I mean, we have it ourselves in a Twitter space where you're sort of talking into the ether rather than talking with people. And once you take that and put it into a space where you are interacting physically with people, having a digital avatar doesn't quite yet work. So it'd be interesting to see what technology we need to push further so that we can have 3 different digital personas, digital identities in a room, and that conversation to flow naturally and it to work in a kind of conference sense as well, because conferences are still such a big part of Web3 culture, and I think they will continue as we go forward.
Bay, this is why I love you. You really like hit me in the heartstrings every single time. You bring up some amazing topics. And I think NFT representation is so important. I think NFT as digital representation is very current in the space, especially with profile picture culture still so strong. And so even we've seen representation bridge into Decentraland, people wanting their Bored Ape head as a Decentraland wearable so they can wear it as their avatar, but also, other NFT projects as well. So Fanggang. We've seen a lot of really big kind of projects come in. So that's a really, really good key point that I wish we could talk more about. I'm just like, oh, Bay, you got me really good. Clemmy, what did you want to say about this? What are you thinking?
I feel like they got me on another great point as well. The whole privacy factor of being able to stay anonymous while still having your own digital representation, kind of hogging up the fame. So that way, when you do go out, you don't have, say, paparazzi jumping in your face and taking pictures of you and harassing you. You're opening up a whole world of just being able to have that spotlight without it being on you.
I can't do that, Clemmy. I think the spotlight does follow me wherever I go. People don't even know I'm famous. I think Michelle Yeoh, they were saying like, I can feel your aura when you enter the room. Like, that's me, baby. Clammy. For anyone listening, I call Clammy through the week and I FaceTime just so he can see me eating
Every
an
day.
apple. I was like, Clemmy, I'm FaceTiming you so you can watch me eat this apple. So, the paparazzi, they follow me. They follow me hard. Um, Moving on to our last topic that Bay brought up, and that was off the top of my head, it was sorry, Bay. I think my brain flunked on that last topic. Clemmy, do you remember what the last topic was? My brain has just fluffed. Creative expression. Sorry, creative expression. I don't know. I think I was just very distracted. The paparazzi got me. I had my pants down, you could
The
say.
limelight was just too strong.
You know what? I love attention, and when I don't get it, I just have to make it about myself. I'm so sorry, Bay. What do you think about digital expression? How can you actually use digital identity as a form of artwork or a form of expression? Do you want to kind of deep dive into that a little bit?
Me?
That was your topic that you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what we're already doing, like all of us. Like, there's just this massive open medium that is completely open for anyone to use and start doing creative works. Just in terms of how, even if it's just with the standard off the shelf wearables that you get when you first log into a platform, just putting that identity together, I think triggers something really different in people. Like it, it's dressing a doll, but then inhabiting that doll. And as a mode of a creative expression, I think Sam Hamilton often talks about the metaverse and Decentraland in particular as being this kind of first days of early cinema that you have to create new experiences for a new medium. And the wearables aspect of the metaverse is something I think that we're just going to be pushing in terms of this whole new artistic world and a whole new creative medium. It was the one thing that really hooked me in terms of entering Decentraland for the first time. And I'm not a gamer, like I don't come from a gaming background. And I found myself within 2 days of being in the metaverse buying a digital dress by a designer called DigiFun, Yaping Chen. And it was like, oh my God, if I, as a pretty older woman without a gaming background, I'm coming into the metaverse and I'm doing all that transfer, like getting from ETH wallet, Polygon wallet, Polygon wallet, Polygon, ETH mana, Polygon mana, waiting for that mana to hit so I can buy this dress. It's like, oh, this has something. This is really engaging and this is something new. And that's what really excited me. And I think what's really exciting now is seeing how people are working cross, I think, as you say, like cross metaverse. Like Rizzle's a really good example. I think Fractillions is doing some really incredible work about pushing like what it means to have something that you expressed yourself with and push that in terms of a creative medium. But I am so excited about it.
I think that's such a good avenue as well, because I know as a creator myself, I've created so many wearables that have a story to tell, and I think a massive one, I think one of my milestone ones in Decentraland was for Pride Month, where I released the wearable that was actually just showcasing how hard it is to be queer in the real world, how it is a secret and you do have to keep your relationship quiet. And I wanted to do it in a really unique way, away from the rainbow flag, and really make it about that storytelling and reflect on kind of mythology as well. So I think it's so important when you're creating as well and creating that digital identity that you can tell a story. And I think there's so many ways people can do that. And I know through me personally, it's digital fashion in the metaverse, but I know other people as well. It's sculpting, it's shaping, and it is creating these kind of spaces and environments, and even I think you were talking about movement earlier. You can do it through dance, and you can do it through motion, and we've seen that in Decentraland for a couple of events that have come up. And I think moving forward, we're going to see it more frequently as well. People actually saying, hey, this is my motion, this is my movement, and how can I do this in digital representation?
I think you're really right. And I think one of the big conversations as well that came out of the installation piece we did a week ago, in terms of like a performance piece, it's like the next step of like interaction as well. Like, how do we use interaction to communicate emotion, communicate community, as you say, Michi, like reference story and things that are important to us and create creative works using that interaction. So thinking about the metaverse space as a theatrical space. How do you start the beginning of a performance? How do you end a performance? How do you create a space like a theatre that says this is a storytelling environment now, not a game or not just a community meet, kind of demarcating these different liminal spaces. And yeah, those kind of ideas now are coming forward, and I think these conversations are just going to get more and more interesting.
And just as well, like me thinking, like, oh, how does my work relate to the topic as well? Like, just me thinking in general. I think my digital identity, actually, my social media platform is Twitter. So on my other platforms, it's all me personal, like my real life, my undocs. And even though they do intertwine quite a lot, I feel like I do keep it quite separate. And I think Twitter and these outlets, especially Metaverse as an outlet, is so good for my creative sense. And I think it's going to be interesting when people start making these Snapchat filters or start making these Instagram filters and bridging these over and really experimenting with that kind of like, how can I express through these kind of mediums, and using social media as more of a medium for expression rather than, I guess, whatever it is now. I don't know what it would be. Doc or Mo, did you want to kind of add to this topic? What do you guys think? Either of you can jump up.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. One of my takes on fashion has always been I just love creating my own clothes, right? I didn't grow up with a lot of money, so I had to work with what I had, and I love being able to kind of upcycle things, right? Go to the thrift store, turn some jeans into some really cute shorts, t-shirts, and always kind of like being proud to be that, and saying that, hey, well, I made this and I created that from this piece that says that this is what it could have been, and I transformed that. And so that was one of the things, especially when I dove into NFTs. I came in by saying, hey, I'm going to turn my poetry and photography into one thing. And then if you buy that thing, then you're going to get my t shirt that I made also. And so I seen it as a way for me to like bring all of my gifts that I just love pouring that and like expressing myself through, and building a community around those things as well, poetry and, feelings that we don't talk about often. Because as you've heard, majority of the things I've talked about have been like very business oriented, but there is that creative side that does need to be nurtured in order for that business to even flourish, because it's all one thing, right? That's what even makes that business great. So seeing places like Decentraland where you can actually like go and create wearables that others can also, take on. That's something that I would love to be able to do. Like I said, I have patterns that I use for content creating behind all kind of things for physical merch, and but I haven't been able to really dive into digital because, well, not digital. Let me take that back. I have digital fashion, like I said, for avatars that you make on like um as pictures, but not as wearables, where you can actually wear them in the metaverse. And so I would love to, see that and still conquer that and be able to express myself in that. And one big point I will say for that is that's why I've always told other digital fashion designers not to be so focused on like learning how to do the digital fashion, because there are going to be tools that make it easier for designers like myself who isn't the best at Code 3D and isn't the best at, actually making the patterns digitally. But there are tools that are enabling that. And, that's kind of where I focused on, because again, I'm focused on onboarding those after me that, aren't spending 4 years at a university to learn these tools, but have that same creative drive and passion and just want to wear their t-shirt in the metaverse or their own creation, and be able to share that with their communities that like it as well.
Totally, 100%. And it's all about that skill sharing. And I think that's a really massive benefit of Web3 is if you don't know how to do something, a lot of people do network or share skill and say like, actually, I can help you in that area, or I do know a little bit about this, or I can do that for you. So I feel like especially it leans into that kind of really artist and creative, I guess, mentality where usually people are quite willing to share how they did something or share how they got to a certain point. Dr. Gua, do you have anything to really add on this as well around, I guess, form of expression through social media using digital representation, storytelling, or people being able to really express themselves through digital avatars in the social media space? Do you have something to add to kind of this topic?
Well, I do notice a lot of influencers. They appear as different person while they are in avatar form. So if I talk to them, I mean, in the streaming room and on TikTok, looking at them on TikTok, they are a quite outward person. But if I meet them face to face, they are quite inward. So I'm gonna transform the avatar. Gonna transform the personal characteristic a lot, and it's really amazing to see this kind of effect that being another person and have a totally different characteristic as well. And I personally have my own avatar as well. I use my avatar to do press release of my products, and I find this way quite economical as well, because normally if I do a press release with a real big screen, with a real with audience in the physical space, I'm gonna spend I'm gonna spend a lot of money on that. But if I do that in metaverse and do a press release, I'm gonna have a gorgeous screen behind me. I can presenting my slides on the screen, and I can have a totally different form of me, and I even have a scar on my face. My avatar have a scar on my face, so uh, so many effects that I can add into the avatar, and yeah, wow, it's uh it's quite amazing.
I think it's a really good point around being able to bring a different personality to the table. This is something I've heard before as well. A lot of people in the space say, actually, I'm not MichiTodd, you know what I mean, or something like this. So like, I'm not who I am in this space. I can actually be someone else. So I think that's a really, really good point. There's so much to unpack in this topic. Um, I thank you so much for sharing. I really do think there's so much to say, and I think we can even go further into VTubers being able to put on that persona when they do go onto social media, or they do go onto YouTube and things like that. Because I've seen it on Twitch, you've seen it in also things. I think a real, like from me off the top of my head, a real life reference as well would be Beyonce. You know, Beyonce being like, Beyonce is my character, but I'm someone else. You know what I mean? Like that's not who I am, but Beyonce is this different persona that I bring to the stage. So I think with VR avatars and also these kind of metaverse avatars, we can actually come to the table as somebody else and be like, this is the persona that I've created for, or even drag queens. It reminds me of, I've been going out tonight, so drag queens anyway. Happy Friday. But I think that same persona, you can actually come to the table and say, this is my metaverse persona, this is my digital persona or my social media persona. I have more energy, or I have more charisma, or I have more of something else, or vice versa. Like I'm a lot shy, or I can come to the table more meek, or I can come to the table with different personality traits. It looks like we accidentally lost Bay, but we're gonna start closing up the room. I can't believe an hour has just slipped by. Fridays is good. It's a good sign if it slipped past, because you know what, the weekend will come so much faster. Doc, did you want to add anything before we kind of wrap up the room, or before we close up anything? Thank you so much for joining today. Did you have anything you wanted to kind of say before we leave?
Wow, it's quite amazing to talk about the digital identity with everyone, and as you know, we're providing this whole platform for someone, for influencer to become an avatar on the social media. So anyone in this room would like to have a try about the Star. It's a quite amazing product, and within 5 minutes you can transform yourself into someone else, a totally avatar, to do streaming on do streaming on TikTok or YouTube, or you can make your own virtual short form video. So if someone interested in that, write me a Twitter, and I can provide a tryout site of the Metastar for free, and you can have a try.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining today and sharing your expertise. I hope we can actually join again, and see you again on the space. So share some more of your insights in the space. We just had someone request up Artorius. Artorius, did you want to add anything before we jump off the spaces
I
and introduce yourself for anyone listening?
absolutely. I'm actually a Twitch streamer for Decentraland. I'm coming back after a lot of tragedy, and I just wanted to announce that if you do have any kind of fashion or wearables within Decentraland that you'd like promoted, I'm more than happy to do so. I should be doing it just about every night around 9 o'clock until further notice, I guess. Um, I want to say I really like these spaces. I really appreciate that y'all have kept things going, that everything is as tight knit as it is. It's good to see you in the space, Big Mouth. And I absolutely can't wait to get back into it.
Big Mouth is my lover boy. I love Big Mouth. Artorius, Can I ask, do you have digital representation on your Twitch stream, or do you actually represent yourself? Are you as yourself? Do you show yourself, or would you show your avatar as that? And how do you kind of relate the two as a Twitch streamer?
I actually really, really love that question because it's a big part of what I'm trying to do with my stream. I actually keep a VTuber model that I'm trying to import into like VR chat and see if I can get it ported for different metaverses or at least mimic it as much as possible because I do want to promote the idea that in the future, when you go to a meeting or something, you are not going to be yourself. I see Meta might be moving in the opposite direction with more realistic avatars. It's just something I've heard around. And I would really like to try to keep the virtual space as unlike reality as we possibly can. Honestly, I think that's the value in it, is that it's something that you can't experience. It is a really unique way to express yourself. So you would say I do both. I do usually have webcam on, but I do also keep the VTuber up at the same time now.
That's amazing, and I would love to I should get a couple of streamers up, and we should talk about digital representation as a VTuber. But I'm sorry I'm wrapping up the room, but thank you so much for coming up and sharing some of your experience as a streamer, a Twitch streamer, and someone from Decentraland in the metaverse space. I would definitely love to have you back to talk a little bit more about your work and how you're going with this as a form of expression. I absolutely love it. I have a perfect face for radio. For some reason, every time I post, I lose followers. No, I don't know why. You know what? TikTok didn't work. Instagram so. But for some reason, Twitter works. This is one of those really funny things. But thank you so much for jumping up, Torius. I really appreciate it. Keep your pants off for sure. Bay, can I ask you, do you have anything else you want to add before we jump off today?
No, just I've really enjoyed it. It's been fabulous. Thank you so much, Michi.
Can you believe an hour went by this fast? It was just so quick.
No, it was amazing.
Thank you so much, Bay, for joining. I really hope you can join again. You blow my mind and my heart. You are my number one. So thank you so much, Bay. I really appreciate your insights and the way you think. It always blows my mind into another dimension. I love it. Mo, do you want to add anything before we jump off?
Sure. I just wanted to say thank you again for inviting me. It was amazing being able to talk with you, Clammy, Bay, the doc, and everyone here. A great conversation. I'm happy that, I was able to be a part of it and share it. And just for anybody that is looking to get into the metaverse, just get into it. Just like we all said, there's so many ways that you can benefit from it. But the biggest benefit is just learning. There's so much learning that you can do no matter which metaverse you go into. They all have something to offer, and just start learning. And if you want to get into spatial, get connected with us. We are all about that education and connecting people to show you how you can do what you're doing in these spaces. So thanks again for having me. I look forward to building more with you all.
Mo, I have to say as well, you are genuinely the host with the most in the metaverse space. So for Clammy and I, it was the first time going into Spatial, attending your event, and I'd never been in a panel either in Spatial. And for me, it was definitely an amazing experience. We were actually talking about it for days, and we had so much fun. You might have seen us dancing out the back because we were like testing all the emotes and stuff in Spatial. We were mucking around, and we just really enjoyed. So for anyone listening, Mo had a really great panel on digital fashion and had some really good panelists. And as your avatar, you can actually sit in the space and have people watching and talking in the space. And then Mo took us on a tour of each person speaking, their work in the space. And Clemmy and I were just mucking around being silly. Like, this is so fun. And we're just running around. And it was also accessible via mobile phone. So if you were kind of nervous about your computer, you could actually attempt on your mobile phone. So Mo was just such an amazing host, and we had a really, really good discussion point. So I'm really excited to see how the space continues to grow and gets more people engaging in these conversations that we should be having around the digital space and how it is growing. Artorius, did you have something you also want to add just before we jump off? Because I saw your hand quickly come up and then go down.
I did. I hate. I want to try not to misuse these spaces at all. So if there is anything that I ever say or do during this this type of thing, feel free to let me know if it's not acceptable. But I wanted to say, MichiTodd is an absolutely brilliant creator. It's great to see that you're still in the space. I wanted to reach out to Sinful. I've tried in the DMs, but it's been a long time, so I don't know if I'm even getting in there. For a lot of the people in this space, I've been just completely and utterly gone. I didn't have internet or anything like that, but I would like to get in touch with as many people that are in this space as I possibly can. Um, yeah, at least on my end, everything is dark, and I'm more than happy to work with absolutely everyone. If you're an independent creator, you're the type of person that I want to promote, because I'm seeing a lot of how do you say it, like consolidation of creators within more corporate spaces. And I think that's the wonder of Decentraland, is that this is still going on, that there is all of you. So definitely feel free to reach out. I'm more than looking forward to talking with you.
Artorius, I'm buckled into the metaverse. I'm so neck deep. I'm actually beyond neck deep. I used to be neck deep in the metaverse. Now I'm head deep. I'm buried. I'm swimming. I'm swimming. I'm doing laps. So I'm so in. I'm not getting out anytime soon. But thank you so much for the
Yes.
kind words. I'm trapped. No, I'm not trapped. Uh, thank you so much for the kind words. The only thing you could do wrong in this space is keep your pants on, aka Mo. We saw you earlier on with your pants on in spatial. Excuse me. We need to write a request to Ready Player Me. We're like, get those underwear out of here. Come on, man. We need to be
We need some
pantsless,
hair ready.
living our best. We need to live our best weekend life. Clammy, you know what to do. Do you want to say anything before we wrap up and continue to wrap up the space, sir?
Of course, of course. If you guys didn't see, I just posted some Snapchat filters at the top. So please screenshot of that, see what it looks like, have a digital representation of your in real life. It's really cool. There are a bunch of different AR features you can use. But you guys know what time it is. So thank you guys for coming. Please make sure your pants are off and they stay off at least until Monday. Good day, everyone.